All righty.
All right, so welcome to tonight's Geoengineering Free Canada's talk. We welcome David Hilderman, a member of the CO2 Coalition. We are building bridges tonight. Geoengineering and CO2, totally different things, but not at the same time, because one of the geoengineering methods is the carbon dioxide removal. So we're going to learn a lot tonight about CO2, and I'm thrilled. Thank you so much, David, for coming on tonight. And I will just open up the floor to you.
All right.
All
Okay, thank you.
right.
Okay, yeah. So my name is David Hilderman, and I think I'll just talk about how I got into this stuff. First of all, in December 2019, I lost my job. I got fired, basically. I was worked for an audio company. But anyway, so I had time. And my whole life, I tried to minimize my carbon footprint. Um, I bought cars with the best gas mileage. My wife always wanted one of those propane heaters to like fire pits to sit around the fire in the backyard. And I thought, no, that's, we can just put on a jacket. It's putting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. It's not a good thing. We shouldn't do that. I really believe this stuff. And then after I lost my job, I had some time. So the thing that I couldn't figure out is how do these people figure that using wind and solar is going to reduce carbon dioxide emissions? Like it's just they're intermittent. It doesn't make any sense. So I was doing research on that, and a friend of mine said, "Dave, forget it, man. There's no climate emergency." I go, "What are you talking about? Carbon dioxide? We're putting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere that's been sequestered from natural processes over millions of years. We're putting it back in the atmosphere right away. It's not natural." And he says, "David, calm down. I'm going to send you a link to a bunch of videos. You're a good friend of mine. Take the time to watch them." I watched them. And yeah. And the thing that got me the most was sea level. And we're going to talk about sea level a little bit. So my talk, what I'm talking about here is why net zero makes absolutely no sense. And so I'm going to share a screen here. I'm going to go through a presentation. Now, if I can do this here, let's try this, share. I'm going to go like this. There we go. Okay. So the main reason that going net zero makes no sense is there's no climate emergency. This image here shows a bunch of predictions about climate. In the 60s, they talked about famine. They talked about a new ice age happening in the early 70s. They thought acid rain was going to kill everything, and then they said in the late 80s they said Maldives is going to be out of water in 30 years. New York City was supposed to be part of New York City. Manhattan was supposed to be underwater. They said that in 1988. Famine in 10 years in the 2000s. And it's just, anyway, it goes on and on and on. All these terrible predictions, they never happen. So that's the main reason going net zero doesn't make any sense. And if you just have that, you can just stop there. But here, let's just, come on, Dave, let's make this thing work. There we go. Okay. Another thing, the climate has been recently warmer than today. There was a Holocene climate optimum, and that was 9,500 to 5,500 years ago. The Roman climatic optimum, that's when the Roman Empire was happening. 2250 to 1600 years ago. And the most recent one was the medieval warm period, which was 1075 to 775 years ago. And that's when Vikings, they grew barley there. So the second image, the image to the right, is images actually of barley they found when they exhumed some graves. They actually grew barley in Greenland, and you can't grow barley in Greenland today because it's not warm enough. And on the left is an image of a tree stump that was found in northern Canada where there is now permafrost. It's 100 kilometers north of where the nearest tree is. They had big trees there, and this is from 5,000 years ago. So it has been warmer. The world didn't end. You often hear that if the Earth warms, if the globe warms a bit, permafrost is going to melt and it's going to cause all this methane to go into the atmosphere. It's going to cause positive feedbacks, and then we're going to all burn up. Well, it's total crap. So here's another thing that everyone needs to understand. When they say that it's the warmest in recorded history, you have to understand that thermometers were invented in 1612. That's when you could start recording the temperature. It is the coldest period in the last 10,000 years. 1612, the Little Ice Age. During the Little Ice Age, there were villages in France that had to evacuate because glaciers were encroaching on their villages and basically just wiping out villages because glaciers were moving. That is when thermometers were invented. So whenever they say, oh, it's the warmest in history, well, yeah, we're still warming out of the Little Ice Age. And the question that I have to ask, has the climate really warmed in the last century? I think when those guys in the 80s were saying, in the late 80s were saying, oh, there's a climate emergency, carbon dioxide is causing the earth to warm, and we're the main thing, the main scare thing they were talking about then was sea level rise because so many people live in the coastal areas, and so all these places were going to get flooded. Well, the longest sea level record on Earth is from Brest, France. Now, if you go to the NOAA website and you see they have monthly averages of sea level records there for hundreds of places around the world. And if you look at them, sea level records are based on hourly measurements because you need to have good sea level records for maritime navigation, like tides. Tides are changing all the time. People have to figure that stuff out or else ships are going to crash. So the longest continuous sea level record in the world is Brest, France. And you can see here it's plotted. It shows this is annual averages in Brest, France. And as you can see, it was pretty much flat. In fact, it was actually falling by 0.026 millimeters a year. Yeah, it's not really falling, but that's what it was doing until 1902. And from 1902 until 2018, it started rising at 1.47 millimeters a year. And there aren't many records that go back that long, but every record that I've ever found shows exactly the same thing, that sea level rise did change back around 1900. And another evidence that the climate changed was that image on the right there is the Thames River. That is a picture of the last time the Thames River froze. That was in 1895. That's the last time it froze. It used to freeze all the time. People used to have markets on the Thames River. So, I don't know. Maybe it's warmed in the last century. Maybe it hasn't. I don't think it has. And so this is this is data that I downloaded from the NOAA website. It's the Victoria Monthly Sea Level. It's the linear trend. Okay, so no, it's the monthly averages. All the blue dots are the monthly averages. The green line is the linear trend from the data. That's 0.74 millimeters a year. That's what it's doing. And the red line is the 20-year moving average. Now I'm going to go back to the previous. So that red line from Brest, France is the 20-year moving average as well. And I'm comparing apples to apples. And now the reason I'm showing you that is because I ran in the last federal election because Elizabeth Mays in my riding, and I ran against her. I debated her 5 times, and I just said, "Look, we're measuring the sea level here. There's no emergency. It's doing the same thing it has for 100 years." And so, I mean, sea level is the one thing that got me. All the other stuff is pretty complicated when you're looking at temperature records and stuff like that. I don't know. Weather changes. How do you know if it's the global temperature averages? So I don't know if you can see. Can you see the full image on the Victoria level annual average, the right image? 'Cause
Yes.
okay, there, I'm moving there. If you can see it, can you see there's a bunch of dots? Those are the averages, and that dot that's up high in the top right corner. I don't know, can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That dot in the top right corner is what the municipality of Sydney, BC, which is right in the peninsula here, right in part of Victoria, this is what they say. And I'm sure I haven't done research into all the municipalities, but that is what the municipality of Sydney says that we have to prepare for sea level because they say that it's going to rise half a meter by 2055. But the sea level right now in 2055, it's going to rise 3/4 of an inch based on the rate that the sea level is rising right now. It would have to start rising 20 millimeters a year today to get to half a meter of rise. So it's all we're really getting hosed here. Okay, so this is a GIF. Let's see if it's working. Yeah, okay, so these are all the sea level records in British Columbia. So they don't take sea level records all over the place, but they have it in Campbell River. They have it in I'm going to move this thing because I can't see the image. Tofino, Victoria, there's Campbell River. There we go. Okay. So as you can see, some sea level records, the sea level's falling, some it's rising. But it is definitely not an emergency, and it's not starting to curve up. It hasn't changed at all. This is there's a called Climate Central. Climate Central. It's a authority on climate around the world. Well, they have stuff about sea level. And they have, this is where they project land will be below the flood level in 2050. They say that Richmond's going to be underwater by 2050. The sea level's measured in Vancouver, and in Vancouver, it's rising 0.55 millimeters a year. It's going to rise like half an inch by 2050, and they say that this is going to be underwater. It would have to rise half a meter. And this is Campbell River here on Vancouver Island. Campbell River, the sea level, I think I showed you the image there about what the sea level is doing there. Well, the sea level is falling there, and yet Climate Central says that all those areas in red there are going to be underwater by 2050.
Oh,
So,
wow.
does it make sense to reduce CO2 emissions? Don't, what happened there? Does it make sense to reduce CO2 emissions? The annual CO2 emissions in China in 1994 was 3 gigatons. And in 2024, 30 years ago, 30 years later, it is 12 gigatons. So it rose 9 gigatons, okay? Today, India has the same amount of CO2 emissions that China had in 1994. They've got the same population. They're going to want to bring their people out of poverty like China did. They are going to increase their CO2 emissions to 12 gigatons, and they're going to continue to increase their CO2 emissions. Because right now, China, a lot of people have done analysis of what is a good amount of energy per capita for a country and for people. Countries will continue to increase their energy use until they get to 5 kilowatts per person. So what that means is that a light bulb, a 100-watt light bulb is a certain amount of energy. A refrigerator uses about 100 watts. So a person on average in a modern society uses 5 kilowatts of energy. And countries are going to continue to increase their amount of energy usage until they get to 5 kilowatts. Right now, China's at 3.5 kilowatts per person, and they're still building 2 coal-fired power plants, 2 coal power plants a week. They're still doing that. And India's going to do the same thing. They're going to increase their CO2 emissions by probably 9 gigatons, and they're probably going to do it faster than China did. Canada only emits 0.55 gigatons. So they are cranking up the carbon dioxide emissions, and it's not making any difference. Globally, CO2 emissions are going up by 0.9 gigatons per year. So like every 9 months, carbon dioxide emissions are increasing more than all of Canada's, the total Canadian carbon dioxide emissions. Makes no sense for us to try to reduce CO2 emissions. So here's another image showing this stuff. So every year, China and India together increase their emissions equivalent to all of Canada's. Canada going net zero will have no measurable effect on global CO2 emissions. And the question is, okay, so some people say, yes, we need to work with China. We need to work with China and India. We need to help them reduce their CO2 emissions. No, because we need cheap energy. Everyone needs cheap energy. This is a graph I downloaded carbon dioxide emissions, and I downloaded amount of people, percentage of population in the world in extreme poverty, and then I went 1 minus the amount of people in extreme poverty to show people not in extreme poverty. And if you plot them by year on the same graph, you get this image. And as you can see, it's not a coincidence. Poverty completely tracks carbon dioxide emissions because energy made from fossil fuels is the lowest cost energy that there is. So China and India are good. All countries are good to bring low cost energy to their people. And so it's a good thing. So here's another reason. And it makes no sense to go net zero. Plants grow faster with increased carbon dioxide. This is a study that I just became aware of in the last couple of weeks. So Columbia University, they had a paper and they looked at crop yields going from 2015 until 2021, and they came to the following conclusion. They said that we consistently find a large carbon dioxide fertilization effect. A 1 part per million increase in carbon dioxide equates to a 0.4% 0.6% and 1% yield increase for corn, soybeans, wheat, and wheat respectively. So what's parts per million of carbon dioxide? So the Earth right now, we have about 423 parts per million of the atmosphere. That's a percentage of the atmosphere. It's parts per million of the atmosphere. That's the same as 0.042% of the atmosphere right now is carbon dioxide. And if it goes up from point like 420 parts per million to 421 parts per million, that little change equates to a zero point 0.4 increase in the growth of corn, 0.6% increase in the output of soybeans, and a 1%. So every part per million increase in carbon dioxide in our atmosphere increases weed output by 1%. So globally, CO2 levels right now are increasing by 2.6 parts per million. So every year, wheat is increasing by 2.6%. Now, I saw this article in the Vancouver Sun. I found this article on it because I just searched like what is it if it impacting BC forests? And in 2016, University of Victoria found that every year carbon dioxide is increasing forest growth rates in BC by 1 to 3% per year. Now, you got to ask yourself, why is it that the media isn't going, hey, guess what? BC forests keep growing faster and faster because carbon dioxide levels are increasing. They never talk about that. Like, the funny thing is, I've been on a few podcasts, and Americans that are sort of like hosting them, and they go, so why is it that Canadians don't want global warming? Don't they want to be warmer? They actually like it cold. And so if it actually did warm from carbon dioxide levels increasing, I think it would be a good thing actually in Canada. If there's one place that we should like welcome, that would be Canada. But in carbon dioxide is really making plants grow faster. So this is more another evidence about this. So carbon dioxide from 1982 to 2015, based on satellite data, leaf cover has increased around the world, and the amount that increased over that period is equivalent to taking all the plants in the continental United States, doubling it, adding it to the planet. Like, it is so amazingly good. Like, it's just unbelievable. Could you imagine if somebody could figure out a way, hey, listen, talk about geoengineering. If geoengineers could figure out, hey, listen, we figured out a way we can geoengineer, we can make plants grow 1% faster around the world. Like, that would actually be a good thing. People, but we don't have to do anything like that. All we have to do is bring people out of poverty and plants grow faster and we're able to feed the world. So yeah. So that's another thing. Plants definitely. So now does wind and solar energy make sense? Canada has 17,000 hectares of solar industrial parks. 70% of this has been added since 2020. Now, the thing about this number that I have there, I did this research about a year ago. I actually think that Canada is building more wind and solar industrial installations now than they ever have been. So all this junk is getting added to our environment at a faster rate today than it ever has. So I don't know what that number is now. I have no idea. It might even be 20,000. It might have increased by 3,000 hectares of solar panels because they're going crazy. They're going hog wild on this. Canada has over 5,000 wind turbines. 70% of these have been built since 2020. In Canada, renewable energy requires 1,400 times more land than natural gas. And that is based on, I don't know if it's that easy to get that data, but the Fraser Institute got accurate information from 2010. They looked at how much land did it take for renewables compared to using fossil fuels and other forms of energy. I think actually, no, I think it was comparing that to natural gas power plants. So this is an analysis that I did a few years ago. So two options to provide BC with 950 megawatts of power. 3,700 is of these. They're 1.5 megawatt wind turbines. So the thing about when you have, let's say you have a 1.5 megawatt wind turbine, they only typically get around, 20%, 17% of that rated power because it's not windy all the time. You know, when it's windy, you're getting 100% output, you're getting a full 1.5 megawatts. When it's not windy, you're not getting anything. And that number 17% is the overall average of all wind turbines in Europe. So to get 9,500 megawatts of power, you would need 3,700 of those, and that would require 195,000 hectares of land. And that the way I figured that out was Saskatchewan government did an estimate of how much land they would need for each wind turbine. And that includes transmission lines that have to get to the wind turbine, that includes roads that have to get there, it includes everything. So 195,000 hectares of land. Another option for 950 megawatts of power would be the Burrard natural gas power generation station. And that's in Port Coquitlam. And I'm really bummed out because they decommissioned that in 2016. They are still running it a little bit and they're getting a little bit of power out of it. But in December of this year, the BC government decided, nope, we're going to start dismantling it. And they're not. So I don't know if it's completely hooped right now. It's possible with political pressure, maybe they could keep it going, but I don't know. And a problem with wind and solar is everything that you add. So doesn't matter. You could have like 950 megawatts apart. You could build 3,700 of those. But the problem is when the wind's not blowing, you still need energy from somewhere else. So if you need 950 megawatts apart, you still need that power plant to provide energy when the wind isn't blowing. It's just adding junk. It's destroying our environment. So the environmental impact of wind and solar in Canada. By 2050, the Smart Prosperity Institute says conservative estimates suggest that Canada would see a cumulative 365,000 to 470,000 tons of expired solar panel waste and 4.5 million tons of wind turbine waste, though the Institute said the total will be much higher if the country plans to hit its net zero targets. This is from a CBC report on October 6th of this year. It's insane. But you know what? It makes a lot of money, right? Because it was interviewing this story was interviewing a guy who's starting to try to figure out how to recycle solar panels right now because the government's they're gonna have to subsidize it. It's gonna cost everyone in Canada money to get rid of this junk after it's put in our planet. Because that's the thing about wind and solar. These wind and solar things, they last a maximum of 20 years. So every 20 years, you got to replace them. Think about that compared to a natural gas power plant. They can last for 70 years. Same with nuclear. They can last for 70 years. So does wind and solar energy make sense? Wind and solar are both intermittent energy sources. When the wind isn't blowing and the sun's not shining, no energy. Reliable backup needs to remain. More stuff needs to be built. Wind and solar cannot replace any infrastructure. They can only add to it. So you have to have all the stuff in place to provide energy for when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining. When we moved to BC, we moved to Victoria, and we had this, I think it's called a Power Plus plan. We've got two electricity meters in our house, and one meter is in an area of our house that we have natural gas heating and electric heating. And the Power Plus program is that they can turn off the electricity on that second meter if peak power requires it because it was cheaper. It was cheaper to give us half price electricity on that part of our house than it was to build more infrastructure to provide the energy, because back then the government actually cared about giving us cheap energy. Now, I believe the government wants to make energy expensive. They don't want us to thrive. I think, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out why are they doing that, but I think that they do. I think they want to take away prosperity from the citizens. It's terrible. So, is wind and solar good for the environment? Bird and bat killing monstrosities, no environmental assessments. In December of this year, the BC government waived the environmental assessment for wind projects. And as a result, Campbell River, near Campbell River, beautiful Campbell River, it's gorgeous on Vancouver Island. They are chopping down forests to put up 30 wind turbines. It's just insane. I don't think they care about the environment. They care about virtue signaling. So electric vehicles, do they make sense? So Vancouver drivers pay 37 cents in taxes per liter of gasoline. Victoria pays 30. Before that, it was 17 cents more. But that's what it is now. Electric vehicles don't pay these taxes, so they will be made up elsewhere. So anyone that doesn't have an electric vehicle, they're going to get taxed. Everyone's going to get taxed more. So the poor get poor. Electric vehicles weigh 30% more than internal combustion vehicles. It causes more road wear. There's less taxes paid by the EV owners. In it's so hilarious. So Australia, I mean, a lot of people in Australia are proud because they're getting so much renewable energy. The thing about in Australia, Australia ships, I think, 50 million tons of coal to China every year. China uses coal, and China provides electricity to their citizens for about 7 cents a kilowatt hour. Australia, they're paying about 40 cents a kilowatt hour. It's terrible. It's just making people poor. So here are some effects of net zero stuff. These are some headlines that I cut out about probably a year ago. So Canada plans 20 billions in subsidies for carbon capture, clean tech, 900 million projects to create hydrogen plants, refueling stops in BC, Clean BC, Go Electric, EV charging rebate program. Canada's committing tens of billions of dollars to the electric vehicle industry. Here's a list of planned projects so far. CIB to lend BC Ferries 75 million to launch its vessel electrification program with the purchase of 4 ferries. Get up to $2,000 for installing energy efficient windows and doors, $2,000 for a heat pump, $1,200 for new insulation attic, exterior walls, and more. All this stuff costs money. If all our government cared about was getting cheap energy to the people, and we could do it. The one thing that I don't know if people understand with fracking is a technology for getting oil out of the ground. That's new. They only came up with it around 2010. Now it's widespread. When you frack for oil, you get natural gas whether you want it or not. Natural gas is so cheap. We could be getting energy so cheap if we weren't demonizing carbon dioxide. So the net effect on the climate, net zero, it's net zero. The effect on the climate's nothing. It's not changing the climate. The net effect on us is we are net poor. And the net effect on the environment is destruction. So that's it. There.
Wow. Wow, what information. Oh, holy. So
Yeah. And I don't know because sometimes, I mean, I don't know, like sometimes, it's one of these things when you're you had your head stuck in it for so long, you think, sometimes you assume that people understand or know some of the stuff that I'm talking about. Like, for instance, parts per million of carbon dioxide. A lot of times I don't explain what that means, but hopefully I did a little bit there.
yeah, you did. And we do have people from Australia here, by the way. So maybe,
Okay. Hi, Australians.
yeah, yeah. So you were talking about actually there was one little thing there in the last one of your last slides about
Yeah.
carbon dioxide or the carbon capture, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And uh, and I have an article here. This just came in a few days ago that Deep Sky to build world's first carbon removal innovation and
Oh,
commercialization center. Deep Sky Labs in Innisfail in Alberta. So just south of Red Deer, they are going to build a massive facility, a massive plant to remove carbon dioxide. That's pretty scary. And
so,
deep, yes, Stella, that's true.
hey, so can I ask you a question? So, are they trying to get it straight from the atmosphere? Are they going to just try to like get the carbon dioxide coming off of a natural gas power plant? Do you know?
I believe it's both. So because when you look at Alberta, because there is, it's the oil industry is in
Yeah.
Alberta. And
Yeah.
so they're probably getting this, they are targeting the oil industry because as we all know, our governments and
Yeah.
they hate the oil industry, right?
Yeah. They do. Yeah.
They hate them. So I believe that this is both. And here in BC, by the way, you probably know that there is another facility up in Squamish. In
Yeah.
there is Yeah, there's a carbon dioxide removal plant up in Squamish, and when you look at their website, it's carbon. What's the? Oh, I can't remember. It's not on top of my.
Yeah. I don't know what it's called, but I know of it too. Yeah, that is the stupidest ideas ever. I mean, it's a way to suck money out of the government, is what it is.
Oh,
It's a way to
I,
suck money out of the government. That's all it is. I mean, that's what people are doing. I mean, if just like so all these municipalities that are doing all these ridiculous things to reduce their carbon emissions. Why are they doing it? Because the government's offering, the federal government and the provincial government are offering them millions of dollars. That's why that like BC, I looked at the environmental plan for the Lower Mainland. Same thing. They talk about all this money they're gonna get. That's why they're doing it. Like, and I wish John Rustad talked about how all this climate stuff was crap I think before he might have even become a moved to the Conservatives, just after he got kicked out of the Liberal Party in BC. But he's still not really talking about it. Like we need people talking about it. And I am so when I ran on the federal election, it's very interesting. David Bush was a conservative candidate that I ran against, and I debated him 3 times. I debated Elizabeth May 5 times. One time was virtual, and David Bush I debated 3 times in person, and once he couldn't make it, so he was like on Zoom and debated us on through Zoom. The 3 times that I debated him, like you'd have a table where you're debating and you just have brochures and stuff. And after, you're always the last person because you're always talking to people until they go. And then after you finish talking, then you clean up your brochures and stuff. So I'm cleaning up my brochures, and David Bush comes up to me and goes, David, way to go. Thanks a lot. That was great. All the stuff you're saying is great. I'd say I'm new to politics. I never ran a politics. What's this about? Like, how does this work? Like, what's going on? I don't like I was just like, I don't get this. I don't get this. The first time. Second time, same thing. He did the same thing. So the third time, I'm so glad I asked him. The third time I said, David, like, what are you talking about the stuff I'm saying about climate? Because I was just basically telling like all these things that make no sense, and a lot of the stuff that I said in this presentation. And he goes, "Yeah, absolutely, yeah, no, people need to hear that. That's so good." I said, "Well, why aren't you saying this? I can't. It'd be political suicide. We can't do that. The conservative, we got to win this election." And he said, "Listen, if I lose this by the votes that you get in this election, I don't want to talk to you again, ever. But if that's not the case, we got to go for coffee sometime." So I did. I went for coffee with the guy. He tells me that all the people in the Conservative Party know that climate's a scam, but they're not saying anything. But the only, and I don't know, maybe they're wise. I don't know. I think you got to be bold, but they're not. So many people are just going with this because we're being lied to so much. There's yeah, there's a organization called West Coast Climate Action Network. I don't know. Have you heard of it?
yep.
You have. Are you a member?
No.
I'm a member. So I get their mailings. It's the scariest thing ever. They this one month they did this thing. So they have a newsletter every week, and this one week they sent out this newsletter. They had a shared Google document, and they wanted everyone that's a part of this weekend to go on the document and write the name of your organization underneath their 30 realms of climate action. So they had 30 different things like stopping fracking, ending natural gas in municipalities, um, getting municipalities to put bike lanes in, like all these, like 30 different things. In the first 5 realms, there were 30 different, I think I think 50 different organizations. And in those, there was the David Suzuki Foundation,
Mm,
there was a Sierra Club of Canada, and I went through it, and all these organizations have millions of dollars in annual funding. So these organizations are just bombarding us from every which way. And the thing about this weekly newsletter, every one of these nuclear newsletters, they have form letters to send to all different levels of government. So all levels of government being bombarded with this stuff, and the rest of us are just paying for it. And we're
mhm,
seeing we're seeing things just getting destroyed.
mhm. Yeah, we are paying for it, and then there is certainly we all know follow the money. We know who's funding lots of especially geoengineering projects, right?
Yeah.
So big giant network around Bill Gates. And
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You know,
so
so I think I'm sort of figuring, I think what's going on, like, so in Canada, I think the Liberal government wants to impoverish us because when you make people's standard of living drop and drop and drop, then all of a sudden you get unrest. And if you get unrest, then the government has an excuse to start putting surveillance cameras everywhere to protect the people, right?
yeah, it's all for
And
you,
then
right?
what's that?
It's all about your safety.
Exactly. So trying to figure, well, why are they doing this? Why would they? I think this is what it is. They want, and I think that the same people that are funding all these environmental organizations, they don't want us to be able to travel. They want us to stay home. They want to be traveling, but they don't want us to travel. They want us to be like stuck in our 15-minute cities, not own vehicles, not being able to have any freedom. So that's what they want. I mean, I don't know what else to think. Like when you look into this, when I first started learning about this stuff, I'd hear people talking like that. And I think, oh, what a bunch of tinfoil hatters. That's like like, come on, guys. So I try to ignore that because I thought, I mean, this could really turn me off. I don't, like it can't be that. Can't. But when you learn about the stuff, it's like, well, what else? What else could it be, right?
Right. David, we have a question right here.
Yeah.
Troy, go right ahead. Troy is a really good friend of mine in Nova Scotia. And so
Hi,
here,
Troy.
Hi, David. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. It's funny. I was just talking to my 11-year-old this afternoon about this deep sky project in Alberta, and
Yeah.
I was reading about it last week, and they've secured $40 million from the Gates Foundation, and
Oh yeah.
the plan is to suck using vacuums and fans to suck carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and put it 2 kilometers underground in these aquifers that are down there. And so I was talking to my daughter, like 11 years old, and she's got more common sense than most of these people. And so the amount of energy that would be consumed in order to do this, it doesn't make any sense, right? Even if you're believing the whole carbon carbon agenda and all that, to think that you're going to build a facility, you're going to drill 2 kilometers down, you're going to suck it out of the air and pump it down into the ground, and somehow this is going to save the planet. um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it was just ironic that we were just talking about that this afternoon. um, but my question for you is, like, I was involved with my local municipality. I was on their climate change panel, and I was trying to not be the tinfoil hatter in there. I was just trying to quietly steer them a little bit, but then I ended up getting kicked off the panel, and so um, that option's out. So what options do we have here? Like, should we be going to our provinces and making presentations? Like, you presented lots of really good information tonight. Like, that's the CBC article about the waste that's being caused. Like, the Nova Scotia government just recently overstepped all the communities and came out with a blanket legislation as far as windmill setbacks, because the windmill setbacks were controlled by the municipalities, and there was a lot of debate about that, and that's what was keeping the windmills at bay in my municipality, was the setback that we had. And now the province has come out with a blanket setback. It depends on the height of the windmill, and that's what the setback is, and that's the bottom line. And so it's pushing all these windmill projects forward. There's one right in my backyard. It's going to be 300 windmills going up there, and it
Oh
is it
no.
is to power a hydrogen plant that's going to send hydrogen over to Germany. And so, and the windmills are coming from Germany as well. And so the mental gymnastics that somebody has to do to think that this is good for the environment is absolutely insane. And so I'm wondering, is our best bet to go and make presentations to the legislature and talk to our local government, or do you have any other
So
suggestions?
yeah, so I think you can try. So I think maybe local government you might have the best. I don't know. Like you just try every which way you can. The problem is that I all these entities get money. That's the problem. Like provincial. So the UCP party at their annual convention made the resolution that carbon dioxide is not a pollutant, and increasing carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is benefiting all life on Earth. They made that resolution. And yet, the next day, and Danielle Smith was there. She was there when they voted on making that a resolution for the party. The next day, Danielle Smith said, we're going to fight we're going to go net zero by using technology. The next day she said that, and she probably was because she knew in her head about this crazy thing about sucking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere from that company. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Do these people like have blackmail stuff on these top leaders? Because when you get that level, do they need money? Like, are they getting paid under the table? Like, I have no idea. It blows my mind. I think the public, I don't know how we educate the public, but that's what's got to happen. So in the US, so Trump won. And a big reason Trump won is because people learn stuff. Like in the US, I think so. Being a part of the CO2 coalition, we get stuff on surveys, and I don't remember the numbers, but it's something like only 6 years ago, something like 70% of the population believed that increasing carbon dioxide was like gonna hurt the climate, was gonna cause a climate, I don't know if emergency, if they use the word emergency. And then like 2 years ago, it dropped to like 40%. Like, and that's why. But in Canada, I don't think that's the case. I mean, we've got the CBC. They have that, I don't know, the CBC radio, they have that What on Earth show. And it's almost like it's a competition. Who can freak people out the most with the most ridiculous stories? I mean, if they have somebody on there that's like talking about a squirrel whose habitat is changing because the climate's changing and they're crying about it, they'll just say, "Oh, it's wonderful. You're right. We've got to stop climate change." Like, it's ridiculous. I don't know. Like, we got to, and it's very tiring. And for me, it's very stressful. It's so stressful. But I don't know if you heard of a woman named Laurel Collins. She's a radical, total greenie, NDP member of parliament. And she had this town hall meeting on the climate emergency. I mean, I go to this thing. The majority of people there have green hair, purple hair. They're like, you know what I mean? Guys wearing tutus. Like, it was just the weirdest bunch of people. And I was freaking out. I was scared to ask my question. But the thing that was interesting is that, so she went in there to do this thing. She had three panelists. She had herself and two other panelists talking about climate. And then when they had the question and answer time, most people asked her about affordability, the affordability crisis, about rents being so high, about groceries going up. And so when I asked the question, I said, China and India, China brought 800 million people out of extreme poverty by bringing them low cost energy. And India's going to continue to increase their carbon dioxide emissions to bring their population out of low cost energy. Everywhere that uses renewable resources, renewable energy, energy costs go up. When energy costs go up, it makes people poor. You wanting to go net zero is making people poor. Why are you doing it? Because we're not going to change the climate. China and India are going to continue increasing their carbon dioxide emissions. They increase theirs every 9 months. China and India increase their carbon dioxide emissions equivalent to all of Canada's. So it doesn't matter what you do. You're not going to change carbon dioxide levels. Are you just doing this to virtue signal? Anyway, she cut me off in the middle of my sentence, but I yelled. So I got the question out there. I got a lot of people thinking, you know,
Mm.
I don't know what else we can do. All we can do is just try to get the word out. It's tough. I hand it to you that you were on that panel. Are you still a member of the town council or something?
Me? No,
No, Troy. I meant Troy.
No,
Oh,
no, I was a town councilor when I lived out west. I ran for town council here in September, but I didn't get in this time. I'm going to run again. But yeah, being on town council, I know how things work, and I know how you've got a limited amount of funds. you want to do all kinds of things. The provincial or federal government comes to you and they say, hey, you agree that there's a climate emergency and we're going to give you $1 million. And so of course you're on a town council, you don't want to raise taxes. The government's offering you $1 million to say this, then yeah, you're gonna say that. We'd all get out there and hold hands and raise the flag that there's an emergency, a climate change emergency. So then we don't have to be the one who's raising taxes. But when I was on town council out west, I was outspoken, and when I get on town council here, I'm going to be outspoken again. But yeah, I really appreciate your website. I've used your information a number of times on a bunch of different presentations that I did. I did have a presentation that I did on climate change with Sean Fraser, who's in the federal government, and yeah, it went over his head. But I really appreciate what you've done, and your platform. I love your website.
Thanks. So one of the things so sea level is the thing that I always go back to, that it's just, come on, there's no emergency. Look at the sea level. It's like they measure it every hour. Um, I think so. John Clauser, he got the Nobel Prize in 2022 in physics for proving Einstein wrong regarding quantum entanglement theory. I mean, the guy's brilliant. He's super brilliant. And the one thing about John, though, he was on his sailboat and he would notice that, when the sun goes under a cloud, it gets so much colder. And he just thought, I wonder how climate models deal with that. That's pretty crazy. Like, how do they deal with that? And then you looked into it, they don't. They just put a fixed amount of cloud cover and they do all their models. And if you look at how it changed the amount of energy that gets to the surface of the earth and how much it warms when and clouds do two things. They act as insulation. They actually do act as insulation. I don't know if you've noticed that if it's a cloudy day, it doesn't get as cold at night. Like if it's cloudy at night, if it's clear, it gets cold, so clouds do that. But they also block the energy that hits the earth. So he looked into it. Cloud variability is 200 times the amount of the effect on the climate that carbon dioxide would be. And here's another, so this is like, right now, the IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, they say that the world has warmed 1.1 degrees Celsius, and we got to keep it under 1.5 degrees Celsius because it's like that's gonna, like, we can't let it go over that. And if it gets to 2 degrees Celsius, it's going to be a complete emergency. The ecosystems are going to just vanish. They tell you all this. And if you just think about it, if you're in a room, a heated room in the winter, and you've got the furnace on, the amount that the temperature is going to change in the earth is about the same amount that the temperature has to change for a thermostat to switch on and off. You don't even notice the temperature change. That's the amount that we are being told, if the earth changes that amount, there's going to be a climate emergency. It's like I hate to say the word brainwashed, but we have been, because it really makes no sense. So going 0.4 degrees Celsius, we got to keep the earth from warming that much. That's what the 1.5 C is. And if it goes to 2 degrees Celsius, that's 0.9 degrees Celsius. It's going to cause an ecological emergency. Like, the lie is it's so unbelievable. It's so unbelievable. But that's what we're being told.
Right. David, we've got another hand up here. This is
Okay.
Stella from Australia. There you go. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Ah, beauty. Okay. Thanks very much, David. That was an excellent presentation. I think, you mentioned that what can we do, really? It's just like, and you said, just get people thinking. That's absolutely what we have to do. I mean, there's not much else we can do. It's all about education, isn't it? Really, that's all we have in our kit bag at this point. And the sea level's rising. The billionaires are all buying the sea side mansions. So there's that. And if the science was settled, why are there so many models? That's another question worth considering. My actual question was, though, with the CO2 containment, which I believe is generally underground, Sherry raised a good point before about their possibility of them being death traps with leaks, etc. I was actually wondering a little bit further along, how volatile are they? Can they just explode? Are they potential bombs sitting underground, or what? How
Yeah, so
volatile are they?
okay, so I don't know that much about that stuff. Now the thing, there actually is one of the full-time staff on the CO2 coalition worked for a company that was about the whole point of the company was CO2 car sequestration, and he just like he learned about and he says I can't do this anymore. He quit it because it just seemed so unethical to be doing this completely ridiculous waste of money. The thing about CO2 sequestration in Alberta, most of it, they don't tell you this, but it's actually they use like getting it out of the atmosphere is ridiculous. But if you use it from a let's say you're using it in where you're fracking and you're getting the CO2 from whatever and you use it, put it back on the ground, they actually use it to get more oil. They use it to be more productive with getting oil. It's very interesting. They don't talk about that much. So the oil and gas industry, I don't know if like, but getting it straight out of the environment is ridiculous. I don't know if it could cause a bomb, but carbon dioxide is very dangerous if it's but I don't know. I don't know. But I know that the one thing that's very interesting is that um oh yeah, in fact I'm a member of this another organization called Climate Realists of BC, and there's a guy that's on that group who he actually his company had a carbon sequestration I can't say the word technology, and they were hoping to get government grants for it, but there's something about it that didn't work. But the thing is, like I said, they used it to get more oil out of the ground. So it can be actually a useful thing, but it's to get it out of the atmosphere makes no sense. And also doing like making pipelines for carbon dioxide is insane, which is what they're doing in the US. They want to have pipelines coming from natural gas and coal-fired power plants to go to places where they can sequester it in the ground, which is just nuts. But yeah, I can't answer the question that you have, Stella. That's about all I know about carbon CO2 sequestration.
Okay, thank you for that.
David,
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's all absolutely insane. It makes absolutely no sense. I mean, it's so frustrating how little sense it all makes, and
Yeah.
even more frustrating that people are falling for it. Thank you for that, David.
Yeah. So
David, I shared in the chat, I shared a link to a YouTube video from Jim Lee. Jim Lee covered in one of his videos the carbon dioxide pipes and the pipelines actually.
oh,
And within his video, he also shared when one of those pipelines burst actually and what happened there. So if you have time, I would like you to maybe take a little peek into that video, and so that you know, understand what we are doing and how we cover the CO2
yeah.
removal
Yeah.
in the context of geoengineering, in context of geoengineering. So yeah, so to see, this is where we are building those bridges right now, right? Because
Yeah.
you know a lot about how CO2 and why CO2 is so important for us and why CO2 does not warm the earth at all. And by the way, another aspect to consider is the earth cannot really warm up too much right now because we are moving into our grand solar minimum. So we are actually, moving away from the sun's energy and from the heat of the sun. So we are cooling naturally no matter what. So this is
Yeah.
why, see, whatever these people are telling us, whoever that is, government, Bill Gates, you name it, it's always the opposite. Always.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it does not make any sense whatsoever. We are not warming. We are not, we don't need this stuff that's behind me here to cool the planet. And by the way, there was an interesting thing going on yesterday in Kelowna about this. We can talk about this later. But you know what? I would like to introduce you to Jeff. Jeff is on our call here, and Jeff is our um, weather guru and a good friend of ours here from in the Climate Viewer gang as well. Jeff, he's an ex-military weather guy, and he knows all about the clouds. And you mentioned the clouds as well. And cloud cover certainly warms everything. It traps the heat, so nothing. That's normal. So why we don't need to cool the planet, we don't need to trap the earth, and all that kind of stuff. Jeff, would you mind speaking to the clouds as well a little bit for us?
Hi, David. Hi,
Hi.
everybody. I know a whole bunch of you.
Right on.
Yeah, weather guy from a long time back, and it's my main thing that I do when I'm not working, and spend a lot of time on CV chat, and the clouds definitely are a big piece of it as far as trapping heat. Look on a cold night, the skies are clear. Look at a cloudy night, it's a lot warmer. It's a
Yeah.
blanket. It is the best greenhouse gas. CO2 does not compare
Yeah.
even slightly. I mean, they're saying now that, I think you alluded to it, David, there's a paper that talked about the amount of heating that is done by the cirrus clouds versus CO2. It's a
Yeah.
lot larger from the cirrus clouds, and they're 30 to 40,000 feet up.
Yeah.
CO2 is ridiculous compared to it. And Jim had that interview with Dr. Hal Thorey, who talked about the amount that CO2 heats the earth, and he used the word minuscule. And
Yeah.
it may
It-
it may have been that he was talking about. There was a comparison in that paper that I read from Dr. Harold Thorey. I don't have it at my fingertips, but both of them are negligible compared to low clouds as far as heating. And the low clouds are typically at the oceans. You don't have them in the center of a continent every day because you don't have the water source. They move through as the front moves through, and then it clears out, and you got cold nights when the high pressure follows a cold front. So, yeah.
and the thing, Jeff, the thing for me is that if you look at any, if you look at any historical study of civilizations going back, there's one that was done in China that looked at Chinese civilizations going back, I think, 4,000 years. Every time that it was warm and warmer than today, civilization prospered.
Yes.
Agriculture was good. Everything was good. They keep telling us that if it warms, it's an emergency. It's not an emergency. It could warm another 2 or 3 degrees. And I think it has to warm like 2 or 3 degrees to get to the same temperatures it was during the Roman warm period, the Roman optimum. It's like it's not an emergency. It's a good thing. Like they're telling us. It's like telling you something that's telling you something over and over, like maybe telling you like bunnies are scary, they're gonna kill you. Keep away from rabbits if you see them out in the forest. They're deadly. And you just tell you that over and over again, and then you believe it. And it's ridiculous. Like that's the thing. It's completely a non-issue, but we're just being lied to like over and over again every day. It's terrible. Yeah.
You can go to the meteorological agencies of the different countries. They're all lying to us. I mean,
Yeah.
Stella and I on our little we have under Stella Q's channel, we've done a lot of investigations and into climate events that were severe, and I looked very carefully watching Milton and Helene come ashore, and they were supposed to be, Cat 3 hurricanes. There was not
Okay.
one Cat 3 wind at onset of coming ashore from either of those hurricanes at arrival of shore. Not one Cat 1 wind at any airport along either of those two locations, which were near Perry, Florida, and Tampa Bay. So I mean, they're bumping up the scare of these increasing strength hurricanes. You know, weather's getting more severe because human people are doing it in the CO2, and that's just a bunch of BS. We did those videos and I show the data at the airports from professional anemometers at the airports. So, you know, they can't just scoot around the airports. Those winds are going to be strong there too. But at the ridges, I could believe there were hurricane strength winds. You know, as you crest a ridge or a canyon, it's going to be different there. But in the populated airports, it's just a part of the narrative. That's ridiculous what they're doing.
In the BC, the climate realists of BC, there's a guy named David Jones, and he's a meteorologist, and he was actually on TV multiple times during the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver. And he totally thought carbon dioxide was causing global warming. He thought it was. And then he was flying back from somewhere and he's sitting beside an economist who just asked him about all these statistics about weather. It's like, are you sure it's like really is there really like what about this and what about this? So he looked into it. So here's this meteorologist, professional meteorologist. His whole life, he thought that that was the case. And then when he actually looked at the data, just like me, just like you, Jeff, just like so many people, if you look at the data, it's a bunch of garbage. There is no climate emergency. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about scaring us, right? If you scare people, you have control.
Yep.
Interestingly enough, these days nobody is really talking climate change anymore. Everybody is now talking geoengineering all of a sudden. And quite frankly, this is a little interesting to us because when we came out with Geoengineering Free Canada, that was back in 2022, the end of 2022.
Okay.
And we were talking, geoengineering, and so nobody really wanted to listen to us, right? I mean, I hosted quite big meetings. One in Kelowna, it was 140 people because I'm based in Kelowna, and I'm part of the freedom movement in Kelowna, and I know a lot of people, and they were interested certainly in what's going on in the skies. So everybody is now talking about what is happening in the skies, but nobody doesn't really understand the term geoengineering and what is geoengineering actually. So everybody is now focusing on just this here, the lines in the sky, without the proper terminology, without any education. And you are right, David. How can we get the message out to the people? What we're doing tonight is what we always do. I host these meetings every 4 weeks with top and high profile activists like you. So this is how we try and push and get the word out. This is all we can do. It's all about education. It's all about the information. And when people say, well, education is programming, no, that's not what I mean by education. I mean, do the proper research, attend these meetings, come see us, throw things at us. And so we try to really kind of, dive deeper into it, and because we are connected. This is why we are doing this with you guys, right? So that, like I say, build bridges and get together, come together.
Hey, do you think there's any hope? So, like, my hope is that, like, the climate thing is just Donald Trump thinks it's just a bunch of garbage. There's there's lots of people in his administration that know it's crap, and they're gonna get rid of this thing, EPA finding that carbon dioxide is a pollutant, and all this stuff. I wonder, and I know on geoengineering, I've heard, I don't know, was it Tulsi Gabbard? Somebody was saying, no, it wasn't. Who was it? Somebody was saying that it was somebody that's like way up. I think it's in his administration was walking on a beach and she was just like doing this live video and she said, oh no, look at there's like there's chemtrails up there. They're doing this to us all the time. Look, you know, and we're gonna and there's multiple states that have like banned geoengineering, and
Yeah.
so I think. Do you think, are you finding with the geoengineering stuff that it's possible that the US will actually do something about this crap and end it? You're
No,
not?
no, we are talking about this every single day, quite
Okay.
frankly. Part of our discussion almost every day within our climate viewer group. And quite frankly, I mean, as much as I appreciate every action people take, but again, it's a matter of how these bills are worded. Is, you know, sometimes they use there is intentional geoengineering. How can you prove that this is intentional? And how can you ban something in a state when it's actually a federal issue? In the States, and Jeff, please correct me if I'm wrong, but in the States, it's called the Clean Air Act. In Canada, we do have a clean air agenda, not an act. But in the States, there is the Clean Air Act, and every state that is banning geoengineering now, unfortunately, has to admit that they cannot enforce this ban.
Yeah,
How?
but yeah,
Yeah.
this person that I heard though, she's federal. She's like right in the Trump administration. So that's what I mean. Like it might come from the top, and in like I could totally see RFK doing it as well, right? So I don't know. Hopefully, I don't know.
No,
Well,
you're
the big
correct. Oh, I'm sorry, Bettina. Yeah, you're
no,
correct.
yeah, and the other issue here and concern is it is a global concern. So we need actually the whole world banning geoengineering, right? So we need every single country in Europe, here in North America, and South America, all over the world. We need everybody on board, and that is huge. And so this is, you know, I'm so thrilled that our climate viewer gang is so connected, and we are all around the world. So we are working with people from everywhere on the planet almost, right? So I'm connected to German people because my background is German, so I can actually build that bridge, you know, because this is a different language, so I can actually kind of try and do something here. And I'm in Canada, and then we've got our Australian friends and all that stuff. So we are certainly trying to push that more and more and more so that we can get the word out internationally. Um, I'm aware that so many people are really trying to push for legislation, and they're trying to, you know, our policy change or anything like that. But again, it's a matter of federal. It's a federal issue. And as long as the federal government does not help us or does not care, and they never will care because it's a matter of power, then, in my opinion, then this will not stop. But it's us, the people. We still need to, you know, push, and we still need to raise awareness. And this is why we're doing what we're doing, and this is why we you know, talk to everyone, and actually that is sort of involved in the same fight, you know. And so this is why I'm so grateful to have you on tonight, because it's a topic that we cover as well, but it's mainly what you are exercising and what you are trained in, what's your expertise in forte. So there you go. So this is what we need to do, and this is how we have to move forward, and I think that's a great thing to do. I'm very, very grateful. So
So so do you think that it's governments that are funding this stuff, or do you think it's people like Bill Gates, people that are like they're not even part of a government, but they just have this agenda, they want to do this stuff? And do you think that they actually are doing it to have anything to do with climate, or do you think they're trying to do you think they're trying to just like kind of like what what the vaccine was kind of doing, making people less healthy so that they're whatever, more control? What do you think?
I personally think this is it's both. It is well, the funding is definitely coming from Bill Gates and these NGOs and that kind of stuff. So, and I don't, well, we do know, because we have a very, very good infographic about this network around Bill Gates and all these NGOs, even outside of the United States, in Germany and in India and wherever else. And there's agreements between those countries too, right? There is federal agreements. So Canada has got a huge agreement with India about weather modification information, the exchange of weather modification information, as well as with the United States. That document, they signed this document in 1975. It's an agreement about the exchange of information, weather modification information. So it's official. They do know what they are doing. We are not making that story up. And when you even go ahead and tell people, hey, this is on our official canada.ca website, type in weather modification, there's two documents that pop up. One is this agreement between Canada and the United States, and the other document is called the Weather Modification Information Act. And that's a 2-pager. And this is on our website, on our government's website. And even we rallied, right? I'm a big rally person. I'm out there all the time rallying even. And then when we presented this to the people walking by, and we said, listen, this is our government, they don't even want to hear that. They walk by and they said, no, can't be true, and all that kind of stuff. Can't be true. This is our official website. So we are not making this story up. And this is really, I think this is so, it became so difficult to get through to the people. Even when you come out with official websites or official statements or documents, or even that. And just tonight, I had to counter someone's letters to the city council, Kelowna City Council, and the mayor. When people, like I say, they attack people with, you have to take action about what happened in our skies without any evidence, without the right terminology, without any proof, without anything, but attacking. And that's not the way, in my opinion, that's not how things work. Because the more you attack them personally, the less information you will get and the less support you will get. If you come out with a good information, with proof, with a kind of an educated talk to them, and I spoke to one of the city council members in Kelowna. It was an hour presentation to him, and he took the time. It was absolutely incredible. It was fantastic. The feedback I got from him, he said, Bettina, there is so much we have to catch up upon, obviously. And that's good. That's a good feedback, because obviously they really do not look into the details. They, because like I say, people just attack them with weird stuff. But when they hear things that we can prove, what is it we can prove? There is certain things we can prove, but is it what we cannot prove is intention. That's not what we can prove. And there's other little things that we can't prove either. When you come out with something like that, prove it to me. And this is probably what their response is when they see these wild attacks. Prove it. Okay, there was a white sky yesterday above Kelowna. We could see the lines. It looked really, really, really scary and weird. And I spoke with Jeff about it, and he provided me with weather information. So there was obviously a big high clouds, front came in. Is that right, Jeff? I believe so. So there were high clouds coming in, but there were still the trails visible. And interestingly enough, like I say, when you look into when you know where to look, there's a website called windy.com, and on windy.com you can download a plugin called a contrail. We are not talking chemtrails, because that's not what we use, right? So it's called Contrail Finder. And I looked at these specific areas and wanted to see what the contrail finder is telling me. Is there any contrails visible? And the contrails were very, very high up in the very high altitude, 40,000 feet and above. So really, really high. And the troposphere is, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but around 38,000 feet. And above that is we are entering into the stratosphere. So my concern was, is there anything that is pointing to stratospheric aerosol injection? But then Jeff said, well, there was a big cloud layer, so you probably wouldn't see those trails if they were up there. So, okay, now here I am. Jeff, your turn.
Hey guys, I got to talk.
Go ahead.
Regarding that, there was a huge cloud shield offshore with an occluded low pressure center on the Gulf of Alaska. And that gives you, if it's a ridge, you have a ridge over the West Coast right now. So you didn't have hardly any rain, right? Bettina, you said that, right, in our text. So the ridge dissipates all the middle clouds, and all you see left in that case is the high clouds. They're very visible because the middle clouds all evaporate. So you saw the cloud shield of a weak weather system with all the middle clouds dissipated, and you had complete visibility of all the high clouds, the thin high cloud shield that goes with that. They call it a dirty ridge. It doesn't evaporate high clouds. They come through as they're coming over the top of the ridge. So that's what you saw, and the conditions were perfect. I look at the radiosonde data for both morning and afternoon, and there was a deep layer of high clouds. So you had complete access to the contrails, which were contrails, which are also chemtrails, which we talk about in Jim's group all the time. They're both. Nobody's wrong by saying so. So I don't know, is that?
It's potato. Were you going to point out about the tropopause, how the heights differ a lot?
Yes, thank you. So
No worries.
yesterday in Michigan, this morning, 22,000 feet. So where there's a low pressure center, the tropopause, the atmosphere is very, very thin. 2 days ago, I was pointing this out to Jim and to somebody else. In Florida, there were 3 places where the tropopause was 59,000 feet. So it's constantly moving. Where the low pressure centers are, that's a cold air mass. The height of the stratosphere is really, really low. We're talking over a 2-day period in the United States, as low as nearly 20,000 up to almost 60,000. You can't just take a number. You have to go to a site like this. Let me show you. Here's a good site. I could share it. Yeah.
Hey,
I could share screen. Yeah. Let me get back to that and say share screen.
One second. I have to make you co-host first. One second.
Okay.
1 second. There you go.
Okay, let's see. Share. Stella's taught me this many times. I'm so challenged on the computer in some ways. Let's see. Here we go. I'll widen this thing out.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a low pressure center coming in with lots of contrails on the West Coast, including you guys had that yesterday. And let me just go to what I was telling you about right there, which is right here, new university, I call it new University of Wyoming data. So this is a radiosonde archive for all the countries in the world. So I'm going to go up to, I'll go to Florida right now, Key West, which has been a super high tropopause lately. So if you go to this, you can get an image up to 10 millibars. Most radiosondes pop at most 7 millibars. Most don't get to 10 though, but this got to 10. The tropopause sticks out like a sore thumb. It's that elbow point, 70 millibars. That's you probably can't read that, but I'll read it. 1.8. I can help you with that. There we go. Stella taught me that too. Thanks, Stella.
Damn, you're good.
18636 times 3.3. This is Key West. The tropopause this morning. No, that's this afternoon. 0Z UTC, 16 April. 18 times 3.3. Who's good at math? 50,000 feet plus 55,000 feet. Correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, let's look at
59.4.
okay, here's Tampa Bay. Go back to the same thing. 10 hectopascals. Pretty close to the same inflection point, 70 millibars. Let's go to Vancouver. So I got to zoom out right here. Vancouver. There's Port Hardy. That's close. Okay, so that's a lot lower, about 230 it looks like, and it becomes nearly isothermal up to 10 millibars. 10 millibars is 100,000 feet. So that's 30 kilometers essentially. But I mean, you can go all over the world and check the tropopause right now just by going to this site, and it's fast. It used to be not fast. I can go and say, I can put, if I know a station number, I can enter that. Like Oakland is 72493. Once you know the number, you can submit it and go right there, and you can see the inventory for the year for that place. You could pick a date and the 0Z or the 12Z sounding and go back to any location. I don't know, back to 2018. It doesn't work so well in Russia right now, and I know because that's where I've been studying the sudden stratospheric warming, but this can go back to technically 2018 for a lot of the United States at least. I can go back to this sounding right here on the 12th of January and look at that same. It didn't go very high. The balloon popped at 100 millibars that day. But all the stuff that's shown right here on the SKU-T, this is not a SKU-T, so you don't get to do all the fun stuff you can in windy, but you have the temperature curve, you have the dew point, and you could see the variable moisture right there as you're going up. And then there's a wet spot up near 200 millibars. Not so wet though, because that's 10 degrees. You wouldn't have a cloud out of that. But you know, you always just can go to windy to get the actual SKU-T to analyze the atmosphere on any location in the world as well. I mean, you can go up to here's Barrow, Alaska. This is what you got at Barrow. Right there or right there would be the tropopause up at 28,000. And that's way north. So pick a place where there's a low pressure center. If you go to look at a chart for upper air page, like this morning I mentioned Detroit, if I look at a 250 millibar chart, just south of the Hudson Bay is a low spot. You got a low pressure center and a trough coming out. So if I went in somewhere that part of the Great Lakes region, that's going to be a really low spot in the atmosphere. Which I'll pick La Grande, IV, Quebec, Canada. And that tropopause is down 270. And you can also look at the text listing and scroll down and look at all the numerical data if you want. I'm getting into the weeds pretty deep here, so shut me up. Bettina.
No, you're more than welcome to speak. David, what do you think? Is that interesting to you?
Well, so okay, if you get that image there, I just want to, I don't think I'm understanding like what you're pulling out of that graph.
Okay. This particular, these numbers right here.
No, no, not the numbers. Like when you got the graph. So
Okay.
yeah. So okay, so
Okay.
where do you figure where the tropopause? What's on the what are you looking on the graph that you can tell that's where it is?
So you have cooling, natural cooling as you go
Okay.
up, and
Yeah.
it's up to the tropopause. That's where the
Oh,
troposphere ends.
and that's when it stops cooling as you rise in
Correct.
okay. Oh,
When
okay,
it
okay, got
starts
it.
to
Okay.
warm or
Yeah.
goes isothermal,
Yeah.
if you look at this is minus 50 degrees.
Okay, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pretty much minus 50 almost
Yeah.
all the way up from
Okay, okay, good. Thanks. Yeah, I couldn't get okay. And so that first one that you showed it went all the way up to the 70, the pressure of
yes.
70 when it start. Yeah. Okay.
So the SKU-T PNG image looks like this. This is the SKU-T. So that's a totally different chart, and that gives you access to lots of information, but you could see the inflection point is really clear right there because it displays differently. Those temperature lines are sloped from lower left to upper right on a
Okay.
SKU-T,
Yeah,
and
okay.
it sticks out like a sore thumb because it's not vertical at that point, but it's still an elbow.
Yeah.
The elbow is your tropopause. And
Okay, I got it. Yeah.
typically above the tropopause, the moisture doesn't go much higher unless you have severe thunderstorms or Hunga Tonga events or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when you get up here, you could see each of these gray lines is 10 degrees. So 10,
Okay.
20, 30 degrees at 200 millibars. That's your dew point depression. The dew point depression is what says cloud or no cloud. You need 5 or less.
Okay.
And if you go to the windy, that makes it really easy because when you go to that chart, it highlights the numbers as you drag your cursor up and down the chart.
Okay, so is the reason that you're doing that is the difference between that red line and the blue line shows what's the possibility that could just be a
Cloud,
normal contrail as compared to it must be a chemtrail?
correct.
Okay.
So there's the nice Appleman chart that you get with this. This is a new app. And if I click on that little red, I got to get this guy out of the way here where I'm looking. Okay, so if you click on the little menu right there, and you go to, if you install the Windy plugin, click that button in the upper right corner, you'll get access to that contrail finder, and then it'll show up right here,
Okay.
which is upper right. So if you click on that contrail finder and put this into high cloud mode and click on any spot where there's not a cloud shield, you're not going to get much in the line of persistent contrails, if any. No contrails predicted. I clicked in somewhere up in
Right.
BC, but if I click out in that cloud shield up near, is that Queen Charlotte's Island up there?
Yeah.
38,000 to 30,000 feet long, possibly persistent contrails in that entire area. And if you scroll to the bottom, it shows you the numbers. So you have to have a maximum temperature of this in the right column. And if it's less than that, so in the case of 38,000 feet, you have to have as warm as minus 50, but as you're getting about minus 61 according to that ECMWF model, which is the models are down here. These are the different
Okay.
prediction programs. So if it's colder than that number on the right column, and it is by 11 degrees, and you have like 60% humidity with respect to water or more, that means it's with respect to ice, 100%. If you have 100% or more, you have a persistent possible contrail. So if you look at all these, that column RHI is 100 plus. They get the checks, but only when your temperature is colder than the temperature in the right column. So these don't get checks. They're too warm below that. Your atmosphere is too warm to make a contrail.
All right. Okay.
Above it, you don't have enough moisture. Above the tropopause, you usually don't have enough moisture up there. So this windy app is just like, it makes it, this is the Appleman curve. This is what they used to tell the pilots in World War II and Vietnam and forward, don't fly at this level because somebody's going to see you coming a long ways away.
Right. Okay.
So anyway, if you just look at this right here and then click back to satellite, you're going to see which ones are more right, which model is right. You can see that's the actual satellite right there. Pretty much all of the Gulf of Alaska is covered with a next incoming cloud shield. And if I click back and forth on high clouds between the different models, this one's not quite right because you could see compared to what we just looked at on satellite, it's not up against the shore right now. Go back, it's not that far from. So the ECMWF is doing pretty well, but you can check between the models right down here and see which one is looking better compared to actual. And then, like forecasters do, they're picking the best one. Which model's working the best today? You can see this low pressure center is near, what is that? That's ADAC or Cold Bay. That dot right there, which is the radius on launch site. That low is right there. They're all going to be a little bit different. Not a lot. Sometimes a lot, though. The depth of the center or any of that.
Jeff, it's
Yes.
amazing. I just stop you right here.
Good. Thank you. I'm getting into the weeds. Sorry.
I know, but that's fine. So I would like to ask the crowd, is there any other question for David? Because we are here to discuss carbon dioxide.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
was just wondering whether there's much of a movement worldwide at this point, apart from obviously you. Is there much of a movement of people sort of butting their heads against this whole CO2 rubbish?
So
Or is that sort of where we're at now? We're trying to raise that awareness.
yeah. So I've been on a guy named Tom Nelson. If you search on YouTube, Tom Nelson podcast, I think he's on Spotify.
Oh yeah, I found him
Tom
recently.
Nelson,
He's
he's
great.
wonderful. I've been on his podcast twice now. He says that it's really changed in the US. He says the climate scam, it's basically the scam is over. It's done. That's what he thinks. But the thing that's so crazy is that in Canada, because Trump is demonized so much, that I wouldn't doubt that in Canada, I don't know. Is Trump, is the change in the administration there and all these people waking up? Are people just going to say, oh, they're just crazy? Is it Trump derangement syndrome going to make Canadians even more crazy about thinking there's a climate emergency? I don't know, because I'm not seeing, I mean, I think I am seeing a few people kind of turning around, but they just can't believe that their government's lying to them. I mean, how can they not believe the government's lying to them? But so I don't know. But in the US, it's way. So this Tom Nelson, he's been on this stuff for, he's been sort of like for over 10 years trying to like this stuff. And he says that he's just seen a huge difference in the States. But I don't know what's going on in Canada. Because man,
And yet all these...
the only politician that's said it is John Rustad, but that's before he became really that public. He was, he gave a speech somewhere in northern BC near, I don't know, Fort Nelson or something like that. And he talked about just that there's no climate emergency, and he just said it right out. Now that he's the opposition leader, you don't hear him saying any of that. So I don't know.
That's what happens, isn't it? The good ones, if they ever get anywhere, suddenly they're sort of not quite so good anymore. There's a couple of people here in Australia that are sort of, asking a few questions, but as usual, these questions just get taken on notice, and then you never really hear the answers unless you, go and every day check the website and everything. So
yeah, in Australia, Tim Ball and Tony Heller were brought out by some, I don't know what you call them, and is it an MP? What's his Malcolm something? What's his name? Oh man, he is, and he's been on TV and like debating a crazy climate
Malcolm
scientist.
Roberts.
Yes.
Malcolm Roberts.
Oh,
Yeah, he's pretty good, although he's part of the One Nation Party. They sort of screwed up a little bit recently with the hate speech thing. They were saying they were going to go against it, so they've kind of lost me a bit. But there's another guy, excuse me, Queensland Senator Gerard Rennick,
Okay.
Rennick. He's awesome, but he's just a senator with a very small party. He hasn't even hardly got any representatives in some of the states. So it's a very beginning for him, but he's really good.
See, but think
But
about it. We have no one in Canada. Not one. Like I said,
right.
John Rustad said something after he got kicked out of the Liberal Party, but now that he's been the leader of the Conservative Party and he's like a public person and people actually pay attention to what he's not saying a thing. So we have no one in Canada. So at least you've got something. But the thing about Australia, unfortunately, they've gone they've destroyed their environment and their economy way more than
Yep.
Canada has with this net zero crap with wind turbines and solar farms. It's terrible what's happening in Australia.
Yeah, well, you heard about the fires that we had in 2019, 2020.
Yeah. Yeah.
That wiped out like ridiculous amounts of environment and animals, and then up in I can't remember the name of the place, but somewhere up in North Queensland, they've just destroyed very fragile koala habitat, and the koalas really, really suffered through those fires, and they're suffering from other things too. But so they had this nice little pocket where they were all breeding and everything. Oh no, they've destroyed that to be able to put up the wind farms. It's just insane. It makes my blood boil. Yep.
So I've actually followed stuff in Australia, and I'm familiar with the way that the government had these like, oh, you can put these solar panels on your roof, and we'll subsidize them, and like give all these incentives. You could sell the electricity back. And so a lot of people that could afford it, they went hog wild. They bought it, and then all of a sudden it destroyed and totally made their grid unstable. So they said, no, no more. So
Mm-hmm.
the people that got them on their roofs get to sell the energy back to the grid. But the reality is, electricity, the biggest cost for electricity is the infrastructure. It's not the coal that they're burning in the things. It's not anything. It's the infrastructure.
Yep.
So all the people
Absolutely.
that didn't get the stuff on their roofs now are footing the bill. So their
Mm-hmm.
electricity prices went way up. And so the rich people that could take advantage of that, could afford to put that stuff on their roofs, they're laughing, but the poor people suffer. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, not only that, they started out with, you can sell your power back to the grid at, whatever it was, 25 cents or something. And then it went down to about 14 cents, and now it's like almost nothing. So that was
I
an absolute lie as well. They've been
Yeah,
doing this for, years.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm glad that they're not paying them because they shouldn't. You should just have to pay to be so. Richard Nixon in the U.S. actually had a vision for the U.S. that electricity would be free. That all you would pay is a subscription, and you got any amount that you wanted. Because he had the idea that they're going to just really keep advancing with nuclear energy, and it was going to be so cheap that it was basically going to be free. And then actually it's funny because it was actually the oil companies that funded the anti-nuclear stuff because they figured they were going to lose money. They were actually the oil companies actually funded the Sierra Club to be opposed to nuclear energy.
There you go. Yeah, and
Mm.
speaking of John Rasta, by the way, David, I challenged him as well, and that was when he started his campaign. I believe it was 2 years ago or something when he started, with that new conservative party or something. And his riding is in where is it? It's up north somewhere, Prince
Yeah.
George. That's where, yeah, that's his writing. But anyway, so I happened to be on one of those calls where he got introduced to people, obviously here actually in Kamloops. And so I was on this call and I was just watching and I was just, kind of listening to his presentation. And then I put in the chat that I would like to invite him to one of our meetings on actually it was a big meeting. It was a conference where I had 4 speakers lined up on that particular event at that event. And we were talking about EMF, by the way, as well, 5G, all that kind of stuff. Dr. Magda Havas, she was one of our speakers. And I invited him to come because he introduced a kind of a tour, a BC tour. He wanted to travel to the smallest little communities and whatever else. And I said, well, when you want to stop in Kelowna, I will certainly give you the floor to introduce you to the crowd, just right at this event. And then he said, yeah, I'm interested, I'm interested. And then once he found out what we were doing, he did not respond to me anymore at all.
Bill
Not at all.
Vanderzan is totally. I've seen stuff Bill Vanderzan talking about geoengineering and totally. So how is he doing?
Who?
Bill
Who?
Vanderzan. Do you know who Bill Vanderzan is? He was a
Mm-mm.
premier of BC.
Oh, that guy. Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, of course.
He,
Yeah.
he he was one of the most popular premiers in BC's history. And he
Right.
he totally has spoken out about geoengineering. But I don't know,
Yeah.
he's getting pretty old. Like I don't know how old he is. Like he probably can't do much now. He's pretty old.
Yeah, there was one popular video that came out when he called out geoengineering as well. That's true. Sorry, I didn't catch that name right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But with John Rusted, it's unfortunately really exactly what happens to all these politicians. They start out, they are promising everything, and then all of a sudden it dies down as soon
Yeah.
as they become, and as soon as they, I don't know, achieve something. I mean, he obviously is still challenging the BC elections and all that kind of stuff, which is certainly great. But quite frankly, he didn't even respond. A friend of mine, he was sending him a letter regards the ostriches. Did you hear about the ostrich farm here in Edgewood? Yeah,
Oh, so is that in
and
your area?
it's no, not really. It is
Okay.
northeast of Kelowna,
Okay.
2.5 hours away from Kelowna,
Okay.
northeast, Vernon, and then east. And then and so people are protesting, people are taking action against the culling of these 400 ostriches, and they addressed this to John Rusted, and he didn't do nothing at all. He failed to respond. He failed to get back to the people. And I mean, this is really, really sad. People, they put hope into this man because he was advertising this. Yeah, I got kicked out of the Liberals and all that kind of stuff because I spoke up. And now look at what's going on and what's happening, right? I mean, that's very, very sad. So what would you do? And then there's people here in my area where I live, they try and get the conservatives in, go vote, and the federal elections and all that kind of stuff. But when this happens to the people in BC, with the leader that they were thinking that he was doing something for the people, and he is one of us. No, he isn't. He is just as a politician, is just as ever,
Yeah.
the
And I know that he knows the stuff
yeah,
about climate. And he's not like I don't know what he thinks about geoengineering, but I know he knows the stuff about climate. He's not saying a word. And I can't believe like I was so bummed out. So I went for coffee with that David Bush, and he told me that he said that Stephen Harper knows that there's no climate emergency. It's just a scam. Well, then why did he sign the Paris Accord? Well, he had to, is politically, he had to. So what's the point? So basically, all politicians are all liars. That's lying. I'm sorry. If you know what the truth is and you're doing the opposite because you want to be politically correct, you are lying. It's
yeah,
terrible.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Wow, what a discussion tonight. Well, is there anything else about CO2? Actually, we're going from really everything. That's
Yeah, I
awesome.
mean,
Great.
there's so many things. Like for instance, carbon dioxide, the stuff about ocean acidification. Ocean acidification blows my mind because there was a study that was done. What happens if the oceans become more acidic? And it causes all these shellfish, the shells getting softer and it's like hurts all this. And they use hydrochloric acid in that study. There's been multiple studies since where they actually bubbled carbon dioxide into ocean water and the shells get stronger. It's like the lies is incredible. And yet you always hear, oh yeah, but there's also ocean acidification. It's it's unbelievable. It's all lies. All of it. I don't
It's
so
just It's just like the Great Barrier Reef, David.
I
There's
know.
nothing wrong
Yeah,
with it. Absolutely
exactly.
nothing wrong with it. In
Yeah.
fact, it's thriving.
Yeah, yeah. It's got more live coral cover than it has since they've been taking records. Over 40 years, it's got the most live coral ever. I know.
Yep.
It's unbelievable. The lie is so massive. People can't even believe it. Well, it's just like, oh, I'll see if I can maybe pull up a quote. It's classic. I'll find the quote and then you'll have to guess where the quote comes from. Oh, come on, what am I doing here?
It's ironic too, because there's the Great Barrier Reef, the whole crap that they're pushing with that and have been for years. And yet, we've got people like Adani, which is an Indian company, with their mines and everything, and their tailings and everything, they eventually end up sort of in the Barrier Reef area. But
Yeah.
they're not worried about that. It's
Well,
just so
just I mean,
crazy.
I don't know if you like, I don't know if you might even know about this, like the Clayoquot Sound. There was all these people that were like climbing the trees to stop the logging in Clayoquot Sound. It got international media coverage. Just it was all over the world. Oh, we got to stop. Look at these big, beautiful old growth forests. We can't. Okay, yeah, okay. So the government said, okay, we're going to stop the old growth forests. And then about, I don't know, within 10 years, they gave the land to the First Nations. Guess what they did? They clear cut it,
Mm.
Hmm.
you know?
That's happening here in Australia too. There's a lot of Indigenous. There's a lot of places which are, like landmarks that people travel the world to come to, and nobody can go in there anymore because
Yeah.
it's indigenously. Did I just make up a word? It's sensitive. Yeah.
Okay, so I found the quote. In the primitive simplicity of their minds, they more readily fall victims to the big lie than the small lie, since they themselves often tell small lies in little manners, but would be ashamed to resort to the large-scale falsehoods. It would never come to their heads to fabricate colossal untruths, and they would not believe that others could have the impudence to distort the truth so infamously. Even though the facts which prove this to be so may be brought clearly to their minds, they will still doubt and waver and will continue to think that there may be some other explanation. The big
Boom.
lie. Do you know who said that?
No.
Mm-mm.
That's from Adolf Hitler's book Mein Kampf.
Ah. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Goebbels actually he said, "Oh, keep telling a lie over and over and over again, and then it will become the truth."
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
By
mean,
the
yeah.
go
Well,
go go.
I just think that this idea that we go, oh, we gotta stop, we can't allow the world to warm to 1.5 C or 2 C. It's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable that this is the story that we're going net zero over this. Like it's incredible, really. What a lie, eh?
No kidding. David, did you ever hear about the Haida restoration, salmon restoration project? This
I may have heard of it. I don't know.
Okay, so this was a project up obviously Haida Gwaii.
Yeah.
Uh, and they that was a project. It stopped actually in 2012, thankfully. It was they dumped iron
Okay,
into
yeah, I did hear about this. I didn't know what it was called, but I remember. But
yeah.
was it who did that? Who was the people that did that?
Well, the Haida actually
Oh,
agreed to
oh, they
it.
did. Okay, okay, yeah, yeah.
They did agree because they were so concerned about their salmon population.
Okay.
Uh, Obviously, there was not enough salmon along the Haida coast. And so they were concerned about that. So that's why they agreed to have these guys come out and dump that iron into the ocean. Had no idea what damage this obviously really did to the ocean. But that is, by the way, that's a big carbon dioxide removal project. That's considered carbon dioxide removal.
Hmm.
And yeah, so they dumped it in the ocean in order to make these the algae grow and that kind of stuff, so that there was enough food for the salmon. So they artificially, obviously, right, made this plankton and algae and that kind of stuff grow, so there was enough food for the fish. So but in 2012 this project stopped, and so there is
Huh.
no other dam and restoration project happening
How
anymore.
how
But
long did how long did they do it, you know?
I believe it was for a year.
Okay, yeah, I thought it was only one. Yeah, I thought it was just I didn't think it was like an ongoing thing. I thought they just did it once and then I think people got fined and stuff too, didn't they? I think.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they have moved it, so it's now down along the Chile coast. So it's in Chile
Oh,
now.
weird.
Yeah.
Huh.
I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, can I bounce this off you guys? I do wonder sometimes because some of these projects are like they're beyond insane. They're just so stupid. I do wonder if sometimes some of them are red herrings just to keep us kind of, running around. We have to protest this now. We've got to protest that, keeping us occupied, keeping our eyes on that so that something else is going on. I mean, it's possible because some of them are just so stupid. Like, how can smart science people think this is a good idea? That's the bit I can't quite grasp.
Mm.
I don't know.
I don't
I
know
do
either.
wonder.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Well, I think this is there's lots of distraction as well, right? So keep us busy with certain things, and then and keep us distracted from the real problem.
So
Yeah,
it's something
exactly.
that I think is kind of unfortunate. I know two people that were so upset and like couldn't believe the government was like, but they know the government was lying to us about COVID. I know two guys that are now flat earthers. You know, they're lying to us about that. They must be lying to us about the Earth. Like it's wild.
Yeah. Oh well. Okay. If I don't know, it's a beautiful discussion. I really
Yeah,
I have a hard time ending this, but I think we
yeah,
should wrap up because it's getting late for especially Troy in Nova Scotia. He's 4 hours ahead of us.
yeah,
And David, that was wonderful. Thank you so much for your presentation. That was really, really an excellent presentation. I hope that we really kind of build a bridge and we keep in touch. And I would love to learn certainly much, much, much more about your organization, about who is in your organization, what you guys are doing, so that we hopefully can work together down the road and in the future more and more to tackle the climate change narrative. You know, let's get rid of the bullshit. And I think this is really necessary to work together. You know, to organize, to work together, so that we can come out strong and we can build a coalition. So just from different perspective, geoengineering, CO2 doesn't really matter because there is things that are, affect us both, just different.
yeah,
So I hope that we can do this again. I would love to learn, like I say, learn more. And I think we should wrap it up then for tonight. Again, thank you very, very much, David, for
yeah.
coming.
And it was really neat meeting everybody, like the people that kind of spoke up and stuff. It was really, really neat conversing with everybody. That was great. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you as
Okay.
well. Well, then you have a good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, and we'll see you again to our next show, hopefully. And yeah, I would like to say good night for
All
tonight.
right. Good night. Yeah.
Good night.